So the next thing I'd like to do is we're going to put Danette right up front here, do a little switching around. And what I'd like to do is just read you her bio. Danette is a third-generation entrepreneur who spent her entire career studying business growth, marketing, and sales strategies. She made it her professional mission to understand why some people own companies that provide them with personal and financial freedom, while other people own companies that dominate their lives, often leaving them mentally and financially frustrated. Additionally, she dedicated nearly a decade to discovering why some companies can sell for top dollar, but other companies simply close their doors, leaving their owner with almost nothing when he decides to move on. After collecting more than 30 years of research, discovery, and firsthand entrepreneurial experience, Danette consolidated that expertise and packaged it into a step-by-step business growth program called Build It to Grow. That program gives growth-oriented small business owners the knowledge, tools, and skills they need to build and run their successful companies the same way as highly successful veteran entrepreneurs. I am just excited. I cannot wait. If you would all please join me in giving Danette a warm tapestry welcome as she shares her brilliance with us.
Thank you. So,
Just the clicker.
this right here will take me right into my presentation.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, there we go.
I'm going to sit in your seat if you don't mind.
Absolutely. You can move all my stuff out of the way. So, let me get a quick feel for how many of you actually run and own your own business entity. All right. Cool, very much. Is there anyone who is more of a key man position or a manager position, not necessarily owner? You guys from the bank, right? Okay, excellent. So, Diane kind of touched on this, but when most people think of a business owner, they think that they are uber wealthy, that they call the shots, that everyone works for them. But the reality is, most of the time, it's the exact opposite. They work a ton of hours. Everyone else seems to get paid first, and nothing really seems to get done or done right unless they're the one at the wheel. And if you can relate to that, you know that it can be really frustrating and exhausting. Right? So it makes you wonder, why in the world does anyone dream about owning their own business? Because there's another thing that goes with that. There's a statistic that says about 85% of all businesses, new businesses that start within the first 5 years fail and close. And I recently came across another statistic that said, of those that make it past 5 years, half of those don't make it another 5, so they don't make it to 10 years. So you're looking at like a 90% failure rate within the first 10 years. So why would people want to take that on, right? Work a ton of hours and all of that, and have all that frustration. Well, I think the answer is twofold. First of all, you don't know what you don't know, right? So I love entrepreneurs because they're tenacious, they're dreamers, they're go-getters, they jump in, and they don't know that there's this super high failure rate to begin with. And secondly, they don't know that they're going to make the mistakes that 85, 90% of people are making in order to hit this failure rate. Secondly, the reason people dream of it is because business ownership does provide the personal freedom and the personal wealth that people want. The problem is that they don't know that there's a formula to follow to build that kind of a business, and that you have to follow that formula in order to get the results that they want. So as Diane introduced me before, my name is Danette Grau Kohrs. I am the founder of and managing partner of Trinity Strategic Growth Solutions, and I'm the co-developer of a program called Build It to Grow. I have seen and experienced this firsthand. I was third-generation entrepreneur, as I said before. I've got a kind of a couple of fun slides here. This is a picture of my grandparents' bakery on Chippewa that I grew up in. So when I was 9 years old, my dad started dragging me out of bed on Saturday mornings at like 4:30. And he would take me in to work with him. And the first few years, I ate way more than I helped out around there. But I would go in, and I started my entrepreneurial education at about the age of 10. So when I say I have like 4 decades of experience, it's unfortunately kind of true. But then my parents, when I was in high school, bought their own bakery in Warson Woods. So now I'm driving age, so I could drive in and I could go. So here's a picture. Do you have like a little pointer? Is that thing at the top like a red? Like if I point, is it? Yeah, see, these are Cabbage Patch Kids, so it gives you guys a little bit of a date for my sisters down here. And I'm the short little one right here in the back. right in the middle. But this is my family, and we opened up the business in Warson Woods. So I grew up and saw all of the successes and the struggles and the victories and the dynamics of a family-owned business. So then I graduated high school, I went to college, I got my degree in business, I focused on marketing and advertising, and I started working for small businesses running their business development departments. And I saw the same struggles and the same challenges. So I started Trinity in 1999, so I just had my 20 year, and I started helping companies automate their marketing and sales process. Now, today, everybody kind of has that, right? We have alerts and emails and to-dos and tasks and follow-up systems and e-blasts and that sort of thing. But 25 years ago, that was kind of pioneering that space. So I started helping companies do CRM. But what I found is that companies that want to grow, they want to get new clients. They want to get new customers. That's how they want to grow. But the formula is actually the exact opposite. So that's what I want to share with you guys today. I've got 25 minutes, probably 20 now. So this presentation is normally about 45, so I'm going to zip through. I've consolidated a little bit, but I'm going to let you guys know if you catch up with me later, and I'm going to go here too. If you write this phone number down, you can get the slides, the full presentation, and I have it videoed and up on the web, so you guys can go back and watch it again and get more in-depth information. But it's 314-300-0378, and you can text BI2G, which is an acronym for Build It to Grow. All right, and then this number will be at the very end of the last slide as well. So I'm going to jump in and cover as much as I can. So what does an ideal business look like? Well, first of all, it grows easily. It just seems to consistently grow without a lot of effort. It also has very few cash flow problems, which means that there are more revenues coming in than expenses, and there's also a cash reserve so that if there's a dip in income, you've got enough to cover that, or if there's an increase in expenses, there's enough to cover that too. And operations are very smooth, which means that everybody kind of knows what they're supposed to do, and they don't have to always come back to the owner and say, what am I supposed to do again, or this went wrong or that went wrong. Things just happen because they're supposed to on time without a lot of errors. And then another variable is that it's controllable. And what controllable means is that you really have a systematized, what I call a marketing engine, or like a sales faucet that you can turn up if you want more business, or you can turn it down if you have too much. Now, a lot of times people say, well, how can you have too much business? That can't be a problem. But actually it can be, because I have seen more companies fail because they grow too fast than growing very steady and slowly. All right. So here's a couple more. Here's consistent and increasing profits. So again, the business knows what profitability is coming, knows what revenue is coming, and every year that the owner owns it, they become a little bit wealthier because there is consistent profitability. And I mentioned this a little bit earlier, the owner it's not all turnkey hub and spoke around that owner himself or herself, that you also have designed that company so it's not dependent upon any one person. Because I always like to say, okay, my daughter just graduated from college, I've been dreaming about letting her run the business, now I'm going to go on a vacation to Europe for 2 weeks with my husband, but what if she comes in and we're butting heads and that isn't working out? And she's like, well, I'm going to go get a job and we're not working together anymore, right? Then what do I do? So you have to have some kind of a business format where you can replace that person, maybe not overnight, but within a relatively short period of time. And if you have all those things set up and in place, then your business will be attractive to investors. But the key here is that it's also attractive to you because you are the investor, you are the owner. Right? So if it's attractive to investors, it can sell. It will sell quickly, and it will sell at a very nice, lucrative price. All right? So those are 8 criteria. But what do most businesses look like? Well, we touched on this a little bit. The brutal truth is that about 85% of them die or don't survive, and about 10 of them fall into this survival. That's where the owner kind of is spinning their wheels, working. They feel like the business owns them, instead of them owning the business. That's in that category right there. So if you do the math, that leaves about 5% that really hit this thrive level, and that hitting all those criteria that we just talked about. That's really all that hit that. So what's the difference? Well, the biggest difference is that the owner in the non-thriving scenario is running the business, working on the day-to-day and the operations, and not working on the business. You guys probably heard that terminology before. And that's the shift. And you can understand, okay, I need to work on the business, but there's so much of that day-to-day fires and being pulled in 100 directions that it's hard to get out of that without a process and a system in place to step away. So when we look at that, there's two pieces to getting to that other side. And the first part is knowledge, knowing what you need to know to be what I call a growth-oriented business leader, not just someone who's running your business. Because most entrepreneurs start their business because they're really good at what their business does, or they're passionate around what their business sells. But they're not have a lot of experience in being a growth-oriented leader on growing a business. How do you become what I call a growthologist, which I like to call myself because I like to study the science of business growth, what that is. So you have to know what you need to know, because you're not born a dentist, you're not born a business person, you're not born a growth-oriented business leader, you're not born a nutritionist, right? So you have to learn these things. The same thing about owning a business that grows. And then the second part is taking action. So you got to do something with what you learn. And that sounds simple enough, just learn what you need to know and then do it, right? So why doesn't that happen? Well, first of all, we have this thing called, well, I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. First of all, you haven't learned. We talked about that a little bit. So there's two ways to learn. You can learn through trial and error, or you can learn for having someone else teach you. That's the only two ways you can learn anything, right? So how do you guys think entrepreneurs like to learn? Trial and error. That's right, right there. I think it's in our DNA, right? Like, we're go-getters, we're tenacious, right? We're hard workers, can figure things out, have had a lot of success with that, and oftentimes that works to your advantage. But it doesn't here because we have one big variable working against us. It's called time, right? We talked about, like, 5 years is not a lot of time when you're trying to get your business up and running, or even 10 years. Plus, you got 100,000 million things to do, and that's just in the business. Then you got a personal life, right? And children maybe, or spouses, and it's Valentine's Day, and he's like, well, I want to go out to dinner. And you're like, well, I have 6,000 emails to return, right? So you got that to take care of. So trial and error is the best way to learn anything, but it's expensive. Not even if you're putting out cash flow, but it also if you are trying to if you're losing opportunities because of doing it and trying to figure out what works, right? So then there's the other alternative, which is learning from someone else. Now, we have this thing called information overload. And it's even worse than ever before because of the internet, which I love the internet because I can learn anything, but you also go really, really deep, right? You can't ever get to the end of the internet, right? There's always one more article, one more blog, one more video. You can YouTube stuff, you can bookmark it, you can do everything. You can go to workshops and seminars and get binders. Here's all my binders from my program, right? But if you don't do anything with that, if you don't know what's relevant, you don't know what to put to work right now, depending upon where your business is right now, you kind of spin your wheels and you stall out. It's a deer in the headlight kind of a thing, right? So then we have this thing called failure to implement, which is kind of a result of all that. It's like, I don't know what to do. I don't want to do the wrong thing. I don't have the time to do the wrong thing or the money or the cash flow, so what should I do? So we don't do anything. So that's another variable that keeps business owners from making progress. All right. So what's important then is to take all that information, and there's a ton of it out there, and really make it relevant. What's applicable to you right now? What should I do? What's going to make a difference? And then there's also this component called leverage, which is if I do one thing first, I'll get more results from the next step, right? So what order does that in? So you want to put it in that step-by-step roadmap of how do I get from A to Z? What's the Z? Where are you trying to go? And then overcoming that failure to implement through accountability. Because a lot of times entrepreneurs, nobody knows what you're supposed to do, first of all, if you have employees, and they're not going to call you out on it. And they don't know what you've told yourself in your own head that you're going to get done this week and you didn't get done. So you don't really have, as an entrepreneur, this accountability level, especially in this growth of your business. All right, so there's two things to really keep in mind to get to this ideal business. And the first one is to build your business so that it is sellable or saleable. So let's talk about what that is. First of all, you have to think with the end in mind. You have to realize that your business is an income-producing asset. It's not a job. It shouldn't be treated like a job because you won't get to that freedom part, right? So you think of it as an investment, and you think of it for profit, not revenues, not sales, not salary, not how much did I make, but profit, because that's how investors think. And profit is what's left over after all the expenses are done. And that's what a business should be designed to do. And then we talked about this before. You want to build it and work on the growth and the big vision of the business and how it gets there versus running the day-to-day operations. All right? So in that case, it becomes scalable, which means that I can make 2 widgets or 200 widgets. If I can't make 200 widgets without things imploding, then I'm not scalable. So you have to be scalable, and that happens with systems and processes. Part of my systems is I always get cotton mouth while I'm doing this, so I have a water hidden. And then predictable profit and autonomous, meaning that someone else can run the business besides you, and you can replace that person. It's not dependent just on that one person. So the second thing you want to do is then build it to grow. So how do you do that? Here's the big idea. So 65 years ago, there's this guy named Ray Kroc, and he stumbled across the McDonald brothers, and they were systematizing hamburger production. They were just making it kind of like an assembly line. He's like, oh my gosh, this is powerful, this is profitable. We can clone this and we can roll it out across the country and we can make a lot of money. So that was the beginning of the franchise model. Now, franchising is how you start to build it to grow. Now, people will say, I don't want to franchise my business. That's not what I want to do. Or I can't franchise my business. But franchising isn't a kind of business. It's a mode of operation. And that's really key to understand, because you want to build a company in order to follow this cloning systematized approach. So everything's done consistently and predictably in the same way every time, because then you get the same results. And when you get the same results, you get the same profitability, and clients have the same customer experience, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All right, so when you follow the systematized franchised approach, you have a method of operation, a functional organization, right? It's not like, here's your job, you go take care of these tasks and you do that. You really look at the different functions within your business, and we're going to go through those. We're going to zip through them really quick, what those functions are, because there's 8 within every business. And when you start your business, because you're really good at delivering whatever it is that you sell, that's one function. That's what I call fulfillment. All right? That's just one of 8. So if those other 7 functions are not getting the attention and love that they need, that business can't thrive. Documented workflows and tasks. If you've ever worked for a franchise, and I owned a franchise, I owned a couple of different franchise and licensed businesses, everything's documented. The better the franchise, the more documentation they have, down to how to clean the bathroom and how many squirts of cleaner to put in the toilet, which seems silly, like, you know, what do you need to do that for? Until you have teenagers cleaning your bathrooms. And then you're like, yeah, you have to tell them everything. No offense. All right, so here's the key. First of all, franchise is number 1. Secondly is getting focused. Really being targeted at what you're wanting to do and deliver to your customer base, and then doing it really well before you move on to do something else. Most entrepreneurial businesses are all over the map trying to do everything, and they do it all okay or mediocre. But you really want to get good at one thing, where your highest profitability is, where your client's value is the highest, and do that very, very well. Here are those functions that I talked about. There are 4 of them that really drive and maintain, I shouldn't say drive, maintain the profitability and the growth within the business. I call them managing for growth. They sustain it. So it's planning, strategic planning, team development, back office operations, as well as asset and financial protection, right? We talked about that the other night. Financial and asset protection is huge. Making sure you have the insurance in place so that if your building burns down, right, or your key man gets sick, that your business doesn't implode. Those are the 4 that do that. The next 4 are the ones that drive growth. And we have put this into a proprietary formula called a growth engine. So it's kind of a subsystem inside of a system inside of a system. I'm going to zip through that really quick too. But these are what I call the sexy ones, because this is what everybody wants right off the bat, right? When I first started working in my marketing company and helping big companies grow, this is what they want. They want more customers, right? Or they want to close more, right? But that's the last in the formula of where you want to do if you really want to leverage and grow for profitability and long-term sustainability. You can grow really, really fast by generating more of these and hopefully closing them, but that doesn't fix and shore up a lot of operational issues that can implode a business and keep it from growing. So I want to go through that growth engine with you guys really quick. In my full presentation, I talk about this fuel component a little bit more. When I zipped over focus, when I talked about it earlier, focus is really right here. This is what makes you unique in the marketplace. So it has, if you can see this up here, it says unique customer focus, sales message, and strategic attraction. Those 3 things together makes up what's unique or innovative for your business. Even different than a direct competitor, you're very different. So you really want to understand what that is, because then that feeds into your attraction, who you're going to talk to, who wants to do business with you. From there, this is the normal sales cycle. You attract, right, a new lead. Now you guys all know just because you have a lead does not mean that you have a sale, right? So there's a whole lot of something that has to happen between here and there. And part of that is this, what I call closed loop conversion process. So you have the sales process, which is, oh, you're interested? Tell me more. Here's a proposal. Here's some pricing. Let's talk. Do you want to get started? But sometimes they're not ready for that. A lot of companies only want to talk to the people who are ready to buy right now because they're hungry. They want the sale right now. But the real wealth is in developing this nurture process where you're developing relationships and educating them on how to do business in your space, in your industry, and make a good buying process. And assuming everything else is working well, that would be you because you've attracted well, and there are prospects who are an ideal fit for what you do and how you do it. Okay? The next piece then is the fulfill. So you've closed that sale. Now you deliver whatever it is at the price that you promised, when you promised it, how you promised it, all of those things. That makes a lot of sense when I say it, but a lot of companies drop the ball on one or many of those things, right? I'm hypersensitive to it, so I see it all the time. But when you do that, you have another problem. I'll come back to that. But when you fulfill, if you've priced it well to cover all of your expenses, you have a little pot of gold, all right? You want to do it the wow, which is doing it the way you said it, when you said it, at the price you said it, all of those things. If you do not, then you have a hard time doing what we call develop, which means bring them back so they'll do business with you again. Or they give you referrals, which is up here, right? But if you have this development piece, which a lot of businesses drop this part altogether, because as soon as they fulfill, they go back and they try to get the next customer, right? And they get looped here. But this is where the big pot of gold is, because one, you don't have these expenses again of attracting and converting if they come back to do business. You might have a little bit of conversion, but you don't have near as much because they trust you and they like you and you did a great job and they like what you delivered. All right, so you have a bigger one. Plus you get referrals from them, which are much easier to convert, right? You don't have the attraction cost, and boom, they pop through. All right, so that is a very quick, I could talk for like an hour on the growth engine, because this is kind of the heart of the Build It to Grow program, especially when we're driving growth. But we have this dashboard, and these are your metrics. This is understanding and getting inside of the head of your customers, understanding what's going well in your financials, in your pricing, in their satisfaction levels, all of those things. That is important. That's where you start. So I talked about the formula being backwards, right? It's not start and get more leads, then sell them, then fulfill, and then maybe develop. We start with the metrics to figure out what's working, what's not, where do we want to fix, what do we need to work on. Then we look at fulfillment. We want to make sure that that's a wow, that it's rock solid, that it is profitable, that you are looking at every expense involved in delivering and selling your business so that whatever the price is, make sure that you have a healthy profit. Not only to cover all of your expenses, but to also invest back into the business so you can attract more, or buy more equipment if you're in kind of a manufacturing situation, or in a store where you need to replace a refrigerator or something like that. But then also to have a little bit left over for you as the investor to have a what would be called a dividend in the stock market, right? Because as an investor and an owner of the business, you deserve to get paid over and beyond just the job that you do if you're working in the business, because, I got 5 minutes, because that is what a business is supposed to do, is to give you that. And you have a lot of risk, so you deserve to be paid for that, all right? So number 3 then is the develop, which we talked about. You want to develop before you go and worry about getting more, because there's a bigger pot of gold. So why get lots of little pots of gold? We want to get bigger pots of gold, and then we'll go and work on conversion, which means let's make sure we have these both working well, and our message is articulated to be compelling, and we're doing a good job with that. And then finally, we'll go to attraction. Then can you guys see how once I get a new lead and it buzzes right through here, how it'll be much more profitable and a higher conversion rate, et cetera, et cetera? So that's why the traditional attract, convert, fulfill, develop, when you do it backwards, or it's not even backwards, it's like, right? It's much more profitable and much more successful. All right, so your job then as a growth-oriented entrepreneur is to systematize and optimize each of those functions in that order. So first looking at the metrics and the fulfillment, then looking at the customer development, then looking at the conversion, then looking at the attraction function, in that order. But only do one at a time. We talked about focus before, right? We don't want to do them all because then you get overwhelmed, first of all, unless you've got huge resources like a corporation. So you want to work on one at a time. So this, I promised you guys I'd put this back up here at the end. So that is, in a very quick nutshell, the formula that I wanted to share with you guys today and the heart of what I built into the Build It to Grow program. You guys have any questions? I think I have a couple of minutes left. Yes?
I wanted to know, when you were talking about investment back into the company, is there a percentage that you suggest, that you do?
So it depends upon where you're at or your profitability. So that starts with the metrics, again, is really looking at it and knowing. So a lot of generic models will say a good, healthy bottom line net profit would be 15%. That could be your target. But if a company is not profitable right now, we have some techniques and systems to just start. And maybe you just put 2%. We kind of have a reverse model where you say, we call a freedom fund. So you just put 2% of every dollar that comes in the door. And you're profitable right off the bat. The trick then is to reverse budget and say, okay, now I'm only spending 98 cents on every dollar and sticking to that, right? Instead of spending 105 cents for every dollar. But if you do that, you'll have a 2% profitability. But an industry model, a business that's healthy and doing pretty well has a 10 to 15% profit margin. Some of them are 30%, they're doing exceedingly well. But each industry is different based upon how much wiggle room you have.
Yeah, real estate can be even better margins than that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you go back one slide?
Sure. That one?
Yep.
Yep. And if you guys text BI2G first to that number, you'll get the slides. It'll be emailed to you. So the text will ask you for your email address and your name, and then it'll email this to you, so you'll have all of them. And then if you guys want more information on the program, just text me the word more after you've texted BI2G, and then I can give you that. And when we launch new Build It to Grow programs, I also sometimes will run special offers. So one of the things I like to do, and I'm glad I remembered this really quick, is when I do presentations like this, is if you guys text more, I do a drawing once a quarter for our first module for free, which is if you attend our growth workshop events, is a $497 value. So if you guys text more, I will enter you into that drawing for once a quarter we do that. I think my time just went off, but yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Build It to Grow, you mentioned the method of operation, functional organization, documented workflows and tasks, and every business should be franchisable.
Yes.
Under functional organization, I missed that piece. What was that?
Functional organization means you're looking at the business from those 8 functions that I was talking about before. So you're not just saying, hey, do all of these things. You're thinking about, okay, there's someone who's responsible for attracting leads for our business. There's someone who's responsible for converting and making sure that those are being closed, and all of the responsibilities that are beneath that. Now, as a solopreneur, you may wear the hats of all of those things, right, at first as you build and grow your business out, but understanding that's what those functions are and thinking in that way, shape, and form.
One of the things that was a light bulb for me, I'm in Danette's program yesterday. Was that yesterday?
Mm-hmm.
I have a professional photographer that I hire to shoot all my listings, and I have a few coming on this coming week. And so the other night, I'm like texting back and forth to the photographer and my clients and trying to schedule, and I'm like, I spent so much time on this, and it was like 8:30 at night, I'm exhausted, and I'm like, this is stupid. So she said, you need to look at it as a function of your business. So that isn't going to apply to everybody. It was but it was a light bulb for me. Like, okay, how can I take this off my plate? And it's just real simple. I'm going to just cut myself out of the middle and have my photographer do it, and we're going to figure out a system to do that. But looking at it as a function of my business was really helpful. And it's not in my client's best interest for me to be doing that function, because it just made it more chaotic. So
Yes.
so that was like a big light bulb.
Yeah. So thank you. I appreciate your time. If you guys have any other questions or anything, just holler. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.